Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you're listening from, whatever platform you guys are listening to us on. As always, thank you guys so much for the support, the kind messages, all the love that you've sent our way as we are well into year 3 of this show, believe it or not, talking basketball, talking coaching, and thanks for sticking around and checking this episode out. This is going to be a fun one because I know many of you listening are defensive-minded guys and girls who love the defensive end, love getting after it, and love, all the things that you run. A lot of you I know who I've talked to really big into pressing or got man-to-man principles, and some of you throw in the zone in there and everything, all kinds of stuff that you as listeners like to do. And I think one of the things that all of us as coaches who are really passionate on the defensive end want to do is make sure that our team defensively is a tough team, and that they are mentally tough, physically tough, and that no matter what system we have them in, that they're ready to rise up to that challenge and play to the best of their ability. So that's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about that concept of building up a team's defensive toughness, both individually and team defense. So this is going to be a great conversation because just like a lot of you listening, I myself am very defensive minded. And to discuss this topic, very happy to be joined by the new head basketball coach out at Lawrence Free State High School, also the owner of Be Elite Skills Training. Coach Dwayne Paul is joining us here today. Coach, appreciate you coming on. How are things going?
Thank you for having me, man. Things are going well. Things are going well right now.
Awesome. Let's start, Coach. I know we just talked a little bit before we started recording, but let's go ahead and start with your basketball journey, your coaching journey. Where's this game of basketball taking you? Where's your coaching career taking you? And what led you to the current spot that you're at right now, this new position you just got?
Oh, man. Well, originally, I am from Texas. I was born in Port Arthur, Texas, just down in South Texas. I was raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I graduated from Arlington Bowie in 2003. I went to junior college for 2 years at Eastfield Junior College. Man, played under a man named Chris Johnson, who coached at a lot of different 4-year programs. Later went to Birmingham Southern for a year. I was there, played for Dwayne Rebo, who is now the special assistant to the head coach at Sanford, in Birmingham. Actually playing for my point guard. He is my point guard is the head coach, and our former coach is the special assistant to the head coach. So it's crazy how that comes full circle. Then transferred because they dropped our program from Division I to Division III. Transferred to Murray State and finished up my playing career there. Graduated December of 2008. I knew I wanted to coach. I didn't know how far this basketball journey would take me. Played a little bit of professional for a minute. Kind of was ready to step into that next phase of life. And then the goal was to move back home to Texas, get to my old high school, get a job there, and kind of work my way up. That was always the goal. But being back in the Metroplex, man, coaching for my old coach, coaching a little bit of AU traveling ball. I had a lot of college coaching buddies, and had one of my friends, Talvin Hester, who is now the head coach of Louisiana Tech, give me a call and ask me would I have any interest in coaching in college. And long story short, I made my way to University of Wyoming. I worked under Heath Schroyer in 2009 to 2011. I left there, went to Henderson State in Arkansas, Division II school, worked under Doug Nichols. And in 2013, I came to Emporia State, was there from 2013 to 2018. I worked under Sean Vandiver, who is now the assistant coach at the University of Wyoming. At that time of me getting into college, I always told myself that I was going to give myself 10 years, man. If in 10 years I didn't see myself putting myself in positions to be at a good level or to be, making my way towards a head coach, that I would then think about doing something different. That was always the goal for me. The goal was never to try to go and be on ESPN or to do any of those things like that. I was a firm believer in if that was where God wanted to take me, then that's what it led me. I met my wife here in Emporia. We got married and we were expecting our first child in 2018. And anyone who is either a college coach or a former college coach understands the amount of time that takes, and really even high school coaches, honestly, man, the amount of time that you put in with your kids. But it's just a little bit different when you're talking about recruiting and camps, and college basketball never stops. It really does. If you're not working, then you're losing. And so it's one of those things where I wanted to, more so than anything, I wanted to be in control of my time. I wanted to say, hey, this is when we're going to practice. This is when I have free. So I made the decision to make the move to high school in 2018. Went to Lebo High School. It's a small 1A high school here in Kansas, probably about 20 minutes from Emporia. Everybody would always ask me, man, how did you make your way to 1A Lebo High School? Because
yeah,
Lebo
that is
all
coming
of
from
them.
the college world too.
Yes. It was small. My first year, I think the graduating class was like maybe 25 to 30. It was small. It was super small. But it was definitely a blessing. It was definitely a blessing for sure. Had 3 successful years there. Left there, went to Topeka Hayden Catholic High School. Home of Mark Turgeon. He played there, one of the best teams ever come through the state of Kansas. I was there, had 2 good years there. We were able to do some good things and help revitalize the program, getting it back to where it was being competitive. The one unique thing about Hayden is it's a 4A school, and at that time it was the second smallest 4A school in the state. So it's still a small 4A school, but we played in all 5 and 6A league. So we didn't play any teams in our classification until playoffs. It's a gift and a curse because playing those games, you're playing versus the biggest teams in the state, but it's also paying you for playoffs and some of them tougher games. And so because of that, we went on a hellacious run towards the end of the season, made our way to state. We ended up getting 4th in the state that year. And then we came back in last year, underachieved a little bit in my eyes, but lost to a very good Atchison team, finished up right at a 500, 11-11. Once again, playing against all the 5 and 6As, that's saying something about yourself. And so it's one of those things, man, to where I'm very proud of the job that we did there, the work that we did. And me and my coaching staff, we worked hard and had fun. Our kids had fun. They got better. And that awarded me this opportunity here at Free State. And this will be my first year over here at Lawrence Free State. I'm looking forward to it. I just got the job this past May. So it's been a whirlwind to say the least, man. And so now I'm just getting ready for the school year and getting ready to start off season here in a little bit, and hopefully have some success and get after it.
Here you kind of represent that embodiment of go where you need to go, and don't be afraid of, taking a risk or taking a chance, and, find the fit that works for you. And I think that there's, always hesitation that coaches might have about, making a move or making a change of that nature, coaching or professional or otherwise. But man, it sounds like you just kind of go for it and go for the opportunities that seem right and best for you. And it seems to have worked out really well in your favor.
Yeah, man. I've never been one, I never been one to be afraid of change.
Yeah.
That if you're not, constantly trying to learn, trying to get better, trying to challenge yourself, you get stagnant. And, I tell people all the time, I could have been at Hayden or Lebo, when it comes to high school, the rest of my, coaching career, and been happy, been just fine, man. But it's one of those things to where I think every basketball coach, is super competitive. We all want to win. We all want to play at the highest level. We want to coach against the best people. And in the state of Kansas, that is 6A basketball. I think Kansas basketball is very underrated. I think it's growing tremendously. And because of that, you're seeing the the pouring of Division I players, high Division II, Division I players year in and year out for the size of our state. Man, basketball is really, really good. And so because of that, man, you want to be, like I said before, you want to play against the best if you're a player. You want to coach against the best if you're a coach. So that's kind of led me to this point, man. And I couldn't be more happy with the decisions that I've made and the path that God has brought me on right now to get to this point.
For sure. Talk to me a little bit about the work that you do with skills training. And specifically what I wanted to ask is, when you're working with players, is there anything in particular that you find that players in general need a lot of work on? Are there areas of the game that you see where players tend to be underdeveloped and not where they necessarily should be?
To answer your question, your first question, sorry, I started training my first year at Lebo. So my first year I was a Rule 10 coach. And for people that don't know what a Rule 10 here is, I was just coaching it, but I wasn't actually working at the school my first year. So, I was training to supplement income. And so that's what kind of got me into it. But I also kind of, when I came into college basketball, my first year as a grad assistant, I moved up to a, player personnel. But the way I kind of, made my mark in helping the team was, different things of, scatter report, film breakdown and skill development. That was kind of how I kind of came into it. So when I got the opportunity to do that, when I got out of college, because you're so restricted for NCAA rules with doing those kind of things because of just potential of recruiting violations, et cetera. So I didn't really do it, but I had a lot of fun with our guys, and I did a lot of it with my various college programs. But to kind of answer your question, man, when I got into it, I think the thing that I had seen and I still see now is that I think that without being disrespectful, I think that now training has become almost like a watered down profession because everyone wants to call themselves a trainer.
Okay.
Everybody wants to say they want to do stuff. So, it's one of those things to where if anybody who is a fan of basketball and watches basketball, has a son or daughter that plays basketball, they think they know everything. I think that you and I, have experienced that with, whether it is parents or friends of the family or whatever case may be, and thinking that they know more than, what they actually do when it comes to a game of basketball. And so what I see a lot of times is things within skill development that does not translate to basketball. And that's where I kind of come in with Be Elite. I tell my parents, I tell our kids, man, what we're going to do is we're going to do simple better. If you can do simple better than the masses, then you're going to be better than the majority of people. I think that one of the things that is at a high rate right now that people love to do and what looks good is all the ball handling. I think that ball handling looks good. You know what I mean? And I think to each his own, man. But I tell people all the time, man, when you come in one of my training sessions, whether it's an individual or it's a group session, a small group, I'm not a YouTube guy. What I mean by that is you're not going to come on the floor with me and have, 17 different cones all over the place and jumping over stuff and, ducking under things because it's not, it's not an obstacle course. You and I both know, man, that in order to play at the next level, if that's a goal of each kid and they're playing college, you have a max of 3, possibly 4 dribbles, depending on the offense, depending on the spacing, to make an effective move. If you can't do what you need in that amount of time, then you're not going to be able to be effective. So that's what I kind of specialize in with that, man. We work on a lot of things as far as 2 and 3 dribble max. I know the analytics say that the mid-range jumper is, it's not a good shot. I think it's not a good shot because people don't work on it enough. So that's why I think it's not good. So, we try to score from every level. When you look at basketball, man, the highest percentage shot in basketball is the layup. Second is the free throw, corner 3, and top of the key 3. So, I mean, like a lot of that, man, we focus on a lot of those areas to be effective when it comes to scoring, whether it's guards, forwards, posts, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, the dribbling part is really interesting because man, some of that stuff looks really cool, like you said, right? Like it's there's a lot going on, and you do all these like crossovers behind the back combinations and things like that. But then, like you said, like as a coach, if I ever saw a player doing that, I'm like, we're in big trouble if that's what we're doing on offense because the ball's sticking in one place, we're over dribbling, we're not moving the ball. Like that personally doesn't really have any place for me in any offense that I run, or I think any really coach is going to be running.
Mm-hmm. No, man, like I agree. And I think right now on social media, man, I think the clip is going viral, man, is Steph Curry coming out saying that, at a camp saying that, when you catch the ball, you have 0.5 seconds to either catch the ball, shoot it, attack, or get it swung. If you hold it longer than a second, then it's a grenade is going to blow up. It stops everything. Now that Steph Curry has said that, you're going to see more people trying to play like that. But it's been one of those things to where, I think a lot of coaches who are people for, mentors for me, trainers for me, we've been preaching that for some time now. And so, you know, um, I think that, it's good for some positions. But at the end of the day, I mean, 90% of the people that are going to play basketball, when you're going to go and you're going to make a move, more your scoring is going to come from off the ball than it is with the ball in your hand, whether it's you coming off of staggers, post moves, rebounds, rim runs, whatever the case may be. Um, you're not going to be having a 7 dribble combo where you're going to have somebody turning you zigzagging up the floor and you're going to get into whatever move in a 5-on-5 setting and hit a bunch of pull-up jumpers. And any coach that you would do that against, at least for me, I'm going to say, hey, we're going to live with that because if we keep making them shoot contested shots, the numbers are going to balance out. So, very similar to yourself, man. If I see a player doing that, I'm like, okay, we're in trouble. We got to break some bad habits.
So on the topic now, as we kind of talk about, the idea of toughness and building that up individually, team defensively. Let me just start with what is it that you like to run on the defensive end? How would you describe like the schematically what it is you like to run on the defensive end, and where does toughness kind of come into what you like to run?
I'm a man-to-man guy. I'm a man-to-man guy. I will switch some occasionally for zone to kind of out of timeouts, after free throws, special situation. Especially if we've been in man the whole game. I think any coach, man, you have to be able to change pace a little bit. But I like man-to-man because, like I said, coaching, I've coached girls basketball, and I've had players go to the next level. And I'm coaching boys, obviously, right now. But it's one of those things to where if you want to play after high school, you're going to have to be able to understand how to play man-to-man basketball. And so that's what we play for me. And so, that's where I kind of come in. And so for me, man, like I tell my kids all the time, I'd rather come in and win a game 41-40, and I'd be happy about that because we held the team to 40 points. Now I'm not gonna be happy we scored 41. Don't get it misunderstood, man. I mean, we have to be able to score the ball and be able to be effective on offensive end. But I think that, everybody always says defense wins championships. I do agree with that, but I also think that, at the end of the day, winning gets you recruited. Coaches want winners, and be able to win on the road. You got to be more locked in defensively. You got to be more together. You got to be tougher to win those tough games on the road. And so we preach toughness, we preach discipline, and that can be different for everybody, But those two things, discipline and toughness, are essential if you're going to ever have a chance to play for me at any level, high school, college. It doesn't matter. You have to have a sense of toughness to play for me, because I'm going to hold you accountable for everything that you do off and on the court.
And I'm a man person, so when I hear that about that, like the accountability and how important it is to be tough, I think that I know for me, one of the big things on doing man is just pride on defense. And I think just having that toughness of taking the challenge of you're gonna lock this person up, you're gonna do your assignment, you're gonna be ready, to be in help, and you're gonna be on your person and lock them down to the best of your ability. And I think that, at least in my experience, and I can let you speak to yours, I think that that was one of the things I find that I consistently have to do with a lot of my players is kind of build up that competitiveness or that toughness to really want to play defense and accept that challenge. And that's always been something I feel like I have to put a lot of emphasis on.
Yeah, no question, man. I think that first and foremost, man, defense is a thing that you have to want to do. It's never the cute thing. It's never the pretty thing. It's never the thing that kids grow up. I mean, like no one goes to their trainer and say, "Hey, I want to work on an hour worth of defense." It doesn't happen like that. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you go to your trainer, you go to skill development. It's all offensive based. But it's one of those things to where defense is what is going to be the calling card. Defense is what's going to help you win. Defense is going to help you get recruited. And so if that's what's going to help you, then that's what we're going to focus on. So it first and foremost starts with a decision to, you have to make the decision to say, hey, I want to do this. Then once you find one, you got to find 5 of those guys. And when you find 5 of them, now you're like, okay, now we can start to build upon this. But it's one of those things to where it is essential. It is essential, man, for me. And that's the way I think that freshmen are going to make their way to the floor, by just limiting mistakes, hitting open shots, and playing good defense. You got to be able to be depended on. You got to be able to be trusted by your coach in order to put yourself in a position to play at any level, but especially if you want to play at the college level.
And let me ask them to continue to follow up on that. In your definition, and you have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas at a lot of different stops, how does somebody become a great defender? Let's talk about, okay, they got the desire, they want to become a really good defender. In your opinion and in your experience, how does a player become that great defender after they've already established that it's something that they want to do?
I think first and foremost, man, for me, being a good defender becomes you have to make a choice to say, hey, I want to be the best I can possibly be in this area of basketball. And then once you make that choice and you fully buy in to being a good defender, then it's about the effort that you put forth in that. At the high school level, you and I both know a lot of times, man, you're going to get what you're going to get. Whether those, you may have a class that comes in where there's extremely athletically gifted and you got 4 years of athleticism. So you're playing fast, you're all over the court, you're pressing, running, jump. If you feel, entitled to that, then you have sometimes you don't have as athletic guys. So you have to kind of switch your defensive principles still with keeping your culture or whatever you want to call it. So it's about that effort. Then it's about, being a great communicator. There's a lot of ways to be a good defensive player. If you're a little bit slower, if you have the choice that you want to do it, you have great effort, you have great communication. Now you have to say, okay, I got to be a guy that maybe lives in the film room. I got to watch a lot of film. I got to know a lot of tendencies so I can understand what these players do. You know what I mean? You might be a guy that, I'm big on scouting reports. And so, we try to, teams that have given us problems in the past or teams that don't run a lot of, half court offense. If you play a lot of motion and concepts and, movement and free play, those are hard to scout. But those, you know what I mean? I think that's hard to do at the high school level. So, consistent. But those are the things that, gives people problems where you don't have the bigger, the stronger, the faster, great reactions, quick, good instincts kind of players, which is what you're going to get at the high school level more times than not, because you can't control a lot of those things. But I think there's a lot of ways to become a great defender, man. But like I said, first and foremost with that choice, then it was effort. Then once you have that, there's great communication. It's positive communication. It's not just, oh, I got ball, I got help. No, like you're going that extra mile to make sure that, you're communicating at an all-time high for all 5 people on the floor.
And one of the things that I just kind of jotted down from what you put is that, especially I think on the defensive end, I think that there's a lot, and I don't blame, my players at all, especially at the high school level. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding or maybe some miscommunication on what is expected from a player on defense, especially even in a man-to-man setting, I found. And so what you mentioned about kind of like that film room and kind of doing that study, I think as coaches, if we see those players who really take a shine to defense and really want to become great defenders, I think it's really important that they get into a film room session as a coach, you bring that player in and you kind of show them, what good defense looks like, or like you said, kind of go for that scouting report and just kind of go with them, talk over it with them about what great defense is going to look like on that particular player. Because I found in my experience that players kind of come in, some of them really want it, and really want to do well on it, but maybe they don't quite understand what they should be doing, or exactly what it looks like. And I think we owe it to them to really, break it down for them and teach it like we would with anything else on the offensive end.
Yeah, no question, man. I mean, kids, I mean, people don't know what they don't know. And so, you have to be able to, I can't get upset with you because the way we guard ball screens is different than maybe another coach that you've guarded ball screens. I mean, we guard ball screens different,
Mm-hmm.
depends on the player, the personnel. If it's from the angle of the screen, any screen that's a step up screen that comes from below, we're going to ice it. I mean, any screen that comes from even or above the ball, we're going to hedge it. Whether that's a drop coverage, whether it's a hard hedge, it kind of depends on the personnel of my big, his athleticism, my guards, and their ability to fight over screens. But we're still going to do those things. But that's so you got to be able to think a little bit also at the same time. And so it's a lot of things when you start talking about toughness, you start talking about the desire, the choice. It's not just, oh, I'm going to stop my guy. That's part of it. But at the same time, good defenders are good on and off the ball. You know what I mean? And those guys, it's hard to find those guys, but the ones that are great at doing that are elite, and they're really good. And you see them playing, on ESPN, and they play a lot, and they're having success, they're getting recruited, and all things of that nature. But I think that you can, help mold young men or women to be the best they possibly can defensively, and to give that effort. Because just like anything, whether it's with school, whether it is with sports, when kids see themselves having success doing something, and they're able to say, hey, they're winning this way, or, man, like this is something positive is occurring from it, they're more willing to do it at a lot higher rate when they know they're going to be successful also.
And I think that's kind of the big key to success, right? If players, I think that's the easiest way for them to buy in is when they see themselves like being successful. And if you really emphasize defense and you push defense a lot and emphasize and celebrate defense, and then they see the success on the court that comes with it, I think then that just leads to them wanting to become even greater on defense and become even better at it, because they've seen what it can produce and how they can be successful with it.
Yeah, no question, man. I memean, that's life. It's, if you come and you're like, hey, I'm telling you to do something, this way, and you fully buy in to doing it that way, and you start doing it, and for months of you doing it, you're not seeing yourself have success with it. You know what I mean? You're going to be reluctant to want to keep doing it that way. But that's the difference between that full buy-in. Because a lot of times, man, you're going to have some blowback, man, especially when you're talking about defense. Because, for me, man, anybody that ever comes and watches our team, especially early on in the season, we're going to not be as good offensively because for, the amount of time that we have when official practice starts in Kansas, I'm focusing so much on defense, so much on half-court defense, transition defense, being, walling up the ball. I'm probably going to say we're 75-25. I mean, 75% defense, 25% offense. Because I feel that if you just play hard, you play the right way, you get defensive stops early on in the season, you're going to be able to just have a chance to be in games by just stopping other teams. Then if all factors are even, natural instincts and just ability to play and share the ball offensively will come into play. Now, the better the team you play later on in the season, the better you're going to have to be. But we can cross that bridge when we get to it, hopefully semester over Christmas. Now that's when our offense starts to take a turn and become better, all still while focusing on our defense. But that's just kind of what we believe in. That's what I surround myself with coaches who believe in the same thing.
So about the mental side, and there's a lot of stuff that's being done on the offensive side, a lot of different sets, a lot of different offenses people run, and on the defensive end, you're going to get beat. Things are going to happen. Players are going to make good plays. Offenses are going to run what it is they're going to run. Players are going to, not rotate or not be in help or not be defending properly. So what have you and programs that you've worked on in the past kind of worked on with your guys kind of on the mental end to keep them from either like becoming discouraged when they get beat or from blaming one another or just kind of falling apart if a team gets on a streak and on a run? How do you kind of keep your players mentally still engaged and focused and not get too down when, teams make good plays?
Oh man, I mean, it's one of them things. Is my coach at Emporia State, man, Sean Vandiver, man, we would always say, you have to work on what you want to be good at. You know what I mean? If you come in and you never work on shooting, you know what I mean? You never work on shooting, which I feel is one of the biggest things that is, having to be able to shoot the ball from the outside and consistently make shots. One of the biggest things missing in basketball. If you don't work on shooting, you're not going to be good at shooting. And so it's like, if the only time you're ever shooting the ball is within your 5-on-5 or your skill development, which is a portion of practice, you're not going to be great at doing it. So when it comes to defense, and you are what you're going to be good at. And while at I worked for one coach at Henderson and Doug Nichols, and he got it from a man named Danny Casper, who was at Stephen F. Austin at Texas State and some other places like that in Incarnate Word. But he did a shell drill, and it was it was a perfection drill. And so what would happen was, you had certain things that you had to go through. And so, everybody does shell when they jump to the ball back and forth. They do skips, closeouts, and all that kind of stuff like that. But you had to be able to, your team would, you have 5 guys, maybe let's just say green, white, and skins, or whatever your colors are, and you would have you would go through this progression, and you had 4.5 minutes, and it had to be perfect for it to count. If it didn't go, you had to go through the action again. Whether it was the closeout that was bad, whether it wasn't high hands, that was bad, whether the guy attacked penetration, he didn't meet you outside the paint, whether the case may, whether the top guy in the slot didn't get to the nail to make him kick it, whatever the case may be, it had to be perfect. And so they had 4.5 minutes to get through it. And a lot of times early on in the season, they struggled with it. Well, we do perfection drills for basically everything, whether it's one-on-one guarding the ball, 2-on-2, whether we call it Spartan closeouts, 2-on-2 has to be perfect. Our 3-on-3 has to be perfect. Our 4-on-4 has to be perfect. So everything has to, it has to look flawless. Everything has to be good. The communication has to be high. The closeout has to be high. The angles has to be right. Your hands have to be in the right position. If he goes baseline, and we call it, riding the bull. You got to cross step. You got to ride the bull to the baseline. We don't give up straight line drives. So everything has to be perfect there. And if one person doesn't do their job, the whole thing is gonna break down. Well, you got to keep emphasizing that from the very beginning, and you can't sway on that at all. And once you begin to sway on it, they don't do it one time. Like I do, kids will take advantage of that and say, "Oh, well, he said we're going to run if we didn't do A, B, and C, and then this didn't happen, and there was no punishment that occurred from it." Well, you have to stay consistent, and that's hard to do. It's hard to do. Because you get tired, you want to move on, you want to get to the cute stuff, the offense, all the kind of the stuff that that people want you to get to. But this is what's going to help you win or lose. It's going to make you win or lose those games. So you got to be able to stay consistent. And so we do a lot of that on everything. We do perfection stuff on offense, shooting, passing, everything. Everything is we do perfection drills in every aspect of what we do. And so therefore, because we're focusing more on that side of things, we were able to hopefully have more success when it comes to those things.
And when you're doing those, what's kind of your mentality or approach when you're going through these things, knowing that your players are going to struggle in the beginning? How do you kind of keep them motivated and focused on the progress that they're making rather than the fact that, oh, maybe they're not getting it right away? Like, is it just trying to be motivational and keep their spirits up, or so that they don't get like too discouraged? Or is it one of those things that like they just know that they didn't get it, and they know that they got to keep working hard to finally achieve perfection?
You got to find that middle ground, because as a coach, like I try to like as a coach, I try to organize practices to set my kids up for failure. I try to make it hard so they struggle a little bit. because I want them to know that this isn't easy. Because if it was easy, there'd be a bunch of champs at the end of the year. And even if you did it and you do it right, you're still not going to be guaranteed to, get that championship. But your whole goal is you want to be able to put yourself in a position to hopefully have a chance to do that. So in the beginning of it, I kind of like for them to struggle. I kind of like to put them through some adversity to say, okay, because if it was easy and they were just achieving it from the very beginning of it, they wouldn't really respect the approach that you need to be able to do it, whether that's conditioning, whether that is defense or anything else. And so, I like when they struggle in the beginning because, it brings a heightened awareness and a sense of urgency to practice that you have to approach everything with. And when you have that urgency that's now been created, if you keep your practice at that high urgency, you know what I mean? When the game comes and it's time for an urgent time or a situation, if you put your kids in position prior to that moment, it's not going to be too big for them. Now you can't practice in a gym full of people to replicate, playing in front of thousands. But at the same time, you can control what you can control between the lines. And so, I kind of like early on, man, for things to be able to struggle. Because I want to see who's going to emerge as my leaders. I want to see who's going to be able to, have a even keel to where say, hey, you know what, things are not good. Things are not good. It's not ideal. We're not getting it, but staying the course is crucial. And that's what we kind of talked about that a little bit ago. And defensively, it's not going to always look good early, especially the way that we're going to guard it. You know what I mean? Not a lot of high school kids know how to ice ball screens. They don't know who tags. They don't know, where the help comes from. The rotations are different. But, if you stay the course and you just keep believing, even when it doesn't look the way you want it to look early, you're going to have a great chance to have success and to do those things. And so just when I say do those things, I mean be in those championships late, be in those big games, because that's why you play high school sports, to play in front of your home, in front of your hometown, to make it to state, to play in those big games that where they say big time players make step up in big time situations. You hope you have a chance to do that.
And just to add on to one of the parts that you mentioned, and I had a coach tell me this once. I think it was on a previous episode or something similar to that practice should be a real safe place where players feel comfortable failing. And that sounds like something that is definitely going on in the programs that you've worked with, that like failure is like expected, but at the same time, it's like encouraged, because that failure means that they gave it their all, and you're kind of finding where those limits are. And I think practice is definitely where something like that should be taking place and happening.
It's so funny you say that, man, because I had a training session the other day, and I work with kids of all ages, but I bring the same approach to practice as I do to my training sessions. And I tell kids all the time, I encourage mistakes here. I want you to make mistakes, because here we have the ability to blow the whistle, say, nope, do it again. We can't ask the referee, hey, can we replay that? Put some more time on the clock. Let's go again. We have the chance now to mess up, to not do it right, and to do it again until we get it right, to where, you know what I mean? Like you hear the old cliche, man, like, we're not going to work until you get it right. We're going to work until when you can't get it wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so we're going to keep going, keep going. We, so we encourage those things, man. And yeah, there comes a point in time to where, coaches are, you have maybe a heightened sense of urgency, maybe for whether it's a big game or, playoff time or, tournament time, whatever the case may be. But, like you said, your practices have to be one of those where kids are not scared to mess up, and they're okay to ask questions, because that's where they're learning. It is a, on the basketball court is, just another classroom. I tell kids all the time, if you're scared to ask a question in English in fear of what your teacher might say to you or what the reaction that you're going to get, you're going to not ask the question. And then you're not going to understand, which you're not going to do well in the test or the paper or whatever the case may be. It's no different in basketball. If you're scared to ask a question because you're scared of what my reaction or the assistant's reaction is going to be, because you're going to get into quote unquote in trouble because you don't know, then that's even worse than you asking a question. Now, if you're asking a question because you're sleeping, you're not paying attention during film, whole nother story. But
different conversation at that point.
Yes, you're just trying to get a better grasp and knowledge of something like that. I can't get mad at you because you're trying to understand better what we're doing. Like, I encourage that. Do those things. Ask those questions. That's what's going to help us be better.
Speaking on the practice end, what other drills or things have you run in the past that you think not only are effective in building up your defense, but also in making your team tougher and kind of come together? What other stuff do you like to do on the defensive end in practice?
Man, we like, I like to, obviously, man, we do a lot of whether it's, I'll give you an example of, let's say, transition defense.
Okay.
Everyone does the whole, thing where they line them up across the free throw line, and, you throw it to one guy, touch the baseline. We've done that before, man, but it's one of those things to where when you talk about defensively, most teams, if they don't send four to the glass, some teams send five to the glass, they send three. So two people get back a lot of times. You got a guy getting there to stop the ball, a guy covering the basket. You know what I mean? So for me, man, once again, Doug Nichols, one of my good friends, Yurik Malagi, who coaches at Kansas State, in some of these other places, we like to do this thing called 5-on-3 transition. And so we put guys in whatever that team's most ran action, whether it's cross screen, down screen, whether it is, side ball screen, whatever the case may be. And we'll play that live. And we'll have two guys on the sideline. We'll have two guys on the baseline on the lane line. And we'll be playing 3-on-3 live. And so we'll be playing, and the guys on the sideline have to now run down, touch the baseline when the shot's shot and defense gets the ball, and they're sprinting back. So you simulate and replicate more of what you would get in a 5-on-5 game setting when guys are going to the basket. Maybe someone falls down, maybe, a guy trips, or whatever the case may be. Instead of it being 5-on-4, most times you're going to get more 5-on-3. And your goal is to say, hey, we have three defenders. Let's make them pass the ball 4 times. If we can make the ball get one more time, our other guys should be getting back on defense to help us get set where we can be able to adjust and fix our defense after that. So I love 5-on-3 transition, because you work the half court and you work transition at the same time, and you have to communicate at a high level in order to be effective at being successful at doing it.
And it's really big, I can tell, on what you mentioned about communication, and I think that in experiences that I've had in the past, that's always been one of the tougher things for players to get. I don't know if you've had the same experience before, where, and I think you did mention it earlier, that sometimes players will kind of they'll say a few things or say a couple things, but they're really not communicating in a way that's effective, or communicating the things that the team needs. And I don't know if you've had the same experience before, where I feel like communication is one piece that it seems like it's almost like the last thing that players really seem to kind of put together and get on the defensive end.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, a lot of times, man, it's hard to get high school kids to understand, communication, because in their minds, communication to them is, doing the minimum. I got ball, I got deny, I got help. You know what I mean? Like that's universal across the country for the majority. But it's one of those things to where, I've been blessed to, and especially here at Free State, to where you have kids that play at a fairly high level, fairly successful AAU teams with good coaches, and coaches who've either played the next level or coached the next level or had experience with helping guys get to the next level. So they demand more, they demand more. And so what I tell guys all the time is that, if you give the minimum, you're going to get the minimum results. So, those things are the minimum. So, if you're okay finishing 500, under 500 or around that, then okay, let's do that. But that's not my goal for anything that I want to do. I want to be more. I want to be better. So if that's the case and we want to be better at that, then, we got to give more effort than just the minimum. And so our communication has to be one person talking, the other person listening, and then that person listening has to then therefore go back and go back and respond. So we're having a conversation that in turn is communication. If one person's talking and no one's either listening or no one's responding, it's just someone talking to themselves. You know what I mean? So I want you to talk back to me. So that's how I try to explain to my guys. And I've had to find ways, especially coming from the college side over to the high school, in the high school ranks, that it's not so much that the kids don't understand or they can't get it. It's just possibly the way that I am, communicating the message to where they're not understanding. So I have to be able to articulate myself in a different way for them to understand and then translate it to where it connects to their brain for them to go out and perform it at a high level. It's not always the kids. Sometimes it's us as coaches that we have to be able to change our communication. So with that being said, when we're out on the court, I gotta show them. Kids don't know if they don't know. Like I've said different times now.
Yep.
You got to go out there and you got to show them, whether that is film, whether that is like everyone doesn't have the luxury. Me and my coaches, man, like I said, I have a lot of college buddies still. I'm able to go to college coach. I'm able to go to college practice a lot of times. Obviously, man, because they're recruitable athletes, they can't go. But, a lot of times you're having those people who have been on visits, they've been in those settings, and they know what it takes at the next level. And then a lot of times it only takes you about 4 or 5 of those guys that have that kind of mentality to bring the other 8 or 9 along to get them to your level. And that's what good defenders, good players, good teams do, is you elevate the people around you, not bring them down, you know what I mean, to do the minimum. You got to be able to elevate the people around you.
No, that's really well put. And as you mentioned before, right? Players don't know what it is that they don't know. And I know that I talk to a lot of coaches who do a really good job on that when they talk about how we as coaches in our community, and I think this goes for any coach in any sport, especially at the high school level or younger, when you're working with really young kids, is that we're so passionate about our sport. We know a lot about our sport. We're very knowledgeable about our sport, and that our knowledge gap compared to where our players is sometimes really, really big. And if we start communicating and start using way too much complex language or start getting way ahead of ourselves, it's really easy to lose a player, and then their confidence goes down. They get really confused. They get really unsure of themselves. And so, as you mentioned before, communicating it in a way that makes sense to them and not trying to, give them everything, I think is really important and really does build up their confidence when they feel that they can grasp it and understand it.
100%, man. And I mean, like when we first started, I was kind of give you my background, man. And, people would ask me, how did I make it from the college to a 1A high school, man? And so it was one of those things to where I came from being able to say, hey, I love ball screen offense. I need 3 guys that can, shoot the blood out the ball. I need a big that can screen and play at or above the rim, or that can get the ball at the short roll and make the right read. I need the point guard that's really good in the ball screen, shifty, quick, get downhill, make it. So it's like I can recruit what I wanted. I get to high school, especially at 1A high school, and you're having, when you're talking about a town of 2,000 people, and like you get what you get. And so it's like I literally came into my 1A high school level trying to do the same things that I did in college, speaking the same way, same terminology, trying to run so much half court stuff that it was just like, it's like I would be talking and the kids would be looking at me like I had egg on my face. They're like, what are you talking about? And I had to, come to the realization I had to simplify it a lot more for them. And and that's kind of when I made we made a change. And I was like, what, instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, let's be a master at a few. Let's play great defense. Let's run 2 things, and then let's go from there and play at a high level and just have success with that. And so it really helped me to be able to communicate, because I just quite didn't have, the players that were going to go play at the next level across the board. You know what I mean? I had guys who had a sense of pride about their community, about their school, about their team, that wanted to see themselves and their community have success. And that's what made us good. We just played harder than other people. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. I mean, I think a lot of times as coaches, we have to be very intentional about our communication with kids because you can lose them very easily.
Yeah, and there's that concept. I know it's big in the teaching world about, when you want to challenge a kid and push a kid and make sure though that you're pushing them, as we talked about, to failure, but you're not putting them in a position or speaking to them in a way where it's like impossible for them to understand, right? You got to make it so it's challenging them, and they are going to fail and they are going to struggle, but ultimately they're still going to be able to achieve it, and you're not speaking to them in a way that's 100 times above like where it is that they're ready to go, because that's just not going to be helpful for them, and it's not going to be helpful for you as a coach either.
Right. Yeah. Um, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. So it's one of those things, man, where, I mean, the more I do this, especially at the high school level and just in coaching in general, I think that the best coaches that I've been around have been some of your better teachers in the classroom, but they're even some of your better communicators.
Yeah.
And that goes for every level. I mean, I mentioned earlier, man, one of my best friends, man, Yurik Malagi. I've had the luxury to go to practice and watch him coach at multiple schools, Texas A&M, SMU, and now here at Kansas State. And his growth in his communication has been, tremendous to watch and admire as a colleague and a friend of mine that I talk to consistently. Being able to watch him grow, has been great. And the thing about it is that, his growth has come from something that anyone can do. It's just so simple. It's about building great relationships, effective communication, and he's effective because he's just simple. He's not trying to overcomplicate it to where, it's becoming, you're just like, what is he talking about? Like, you think like, I got to try to do something different because I'm at the Power 5 level and I'm at Kansas State, and I get to, talk with, guys like Jerome Tang and guys like that. It's just like, it's just, they make it easy for them, and they love their kids. They make it easy that the kids can understand, and they give them a lot of freedom. But the freedom first, you have to first have the structure before you have the freedom. And that comes on both ends of the floor. You know what I mean? And that's why coaches do, shell, is that you got to understand the concepts of it. Now, within that concept, I'm going to give you freedom because, you know what, maybe you have natural instincts and knack to be able to be a little bit more aggressive on the ball or be a little bit more aggressive off the ball, but still get to help side in to close out if possible. And so those things are just, I think that coaches can overcomplicate it, man. And that's what I've learned over the years. The more simple I can be, the better I'm going to be.
And you can have, simple concepts that are still really challenging and really, really difficult to perfect, because those things that could be the simplest are, I think, oftentimes the ones that are actually the most demanding or the most hardest to actually get perfect down. Let me go. Final question I wanted to ask before we hit our concluding segment is I kind of wanted to ask you about program culture and kind of the concept and the idea of building a program culture, specifically where defense is something that they're proud of. So what kind of goes into building that culture and building a program culture where defense is something that they got a lot of pride in, and they look at themselves as kind of like a defensive minded team?
Well, I mean, like, I think that, first and foremost, man, it's about the emphasis that you put on it. I mentioned it before. You're going to be great at what you emphasize in doing, but even more so than you emphasizing, closing out and, all those things like that. I personally think that it starts with what you emphasize off the floor, away from basketball. I think that when we put winning in, winning games above, growing young men and women, is that we start to lose. So, example, I tell my kids, I always use the same phrase, and I'm not the only one that does it, but how we do anything is how we do everything. So, If I'm receiving emails from your teacher that you're acting up in class, if I'm seeing you act a certain way in the hallways, if I'm seeing you, acting a certain way in lunch, if I don't see you, preparing for practice a certain way, if you're not taking care of your body, if you're not taking care of your grades, if you're acting crazy at football games, whatever the case may be, these are things that I keep in my mental Rolodex, because I am sitting here saying, okay, you're trying to turn it on and off to be able to try to trick me. And really all you're doing is tricking yourself. And the people that have the biggest impact and are leaders are people that their teammates can watch them do it the right way on and off the floor. If they just, if you see someone getting upset with a younger kid or someone with less experience or whatever the case may be, because they're not making shots, or they're saying that we got to come in here and we got to go hard, or we got to condition at a certain level or do whatever the case may be, and they don't see them doing it, they're not going to listen to them. They're only going to be like, okay, you're trying to tell me what to do and you're not even living practicing what you preach. And so it's one of those things to where I emphasize so much more stuff away from basketball that therefore leads onto the court. And because I hold them accountable for those things, I feel like that I'm able to hold them accountable when it comes to on the floor. And so that's how I start my culture of toughness, of defense, is the accountability portion for everything. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if it's your best player, if it is your worst player, if it's your manager, your assistant coaches, your whatever. Everybody has a job they have to do, and they have to be held accountable if they don't do it the right way. And so, that is how you build that culture. And it's like, you can't be afraid. I tell people all the time, I'm not afraid of confrontation, because I think it's healthy. I don't want a bunch of yes men around me. I don't want people to go tell me yes all the time. There's a way that you can disagree by being respectful. I don't want to, my players, my coaches, no one. Because the more that you question me, that's your way of trying to understand. The more questions you ask, and so you ask those questions, you're trying to understand. It's not that you're trying to disrespect me. You're trying to understand my thought process behind why it is that we're doing what we're doing, or whatever the case may be. So that is how I try to create that culture, that may create that defensive thing. And then now, because I've done that, it leads me to on the floor, and it leads me to being able to hold them accountable for everything. It's tiring. I mean, it.
Yeah.
You know it, man. It's hard to hold kids accountable for everything, because you want them just to get it and now let's move on. But it just doesn't work that
process.
Yes, yeah. Yes, it's the process. I mean, and I'm huge on the details. Like I said before, the angle you close out, your feet, your base, your hands, your what you say, when you talk it, you know what I mean? Like simple things like switching. Everybody, I mean, we live in the day and age of switching 1 through 5, but I think that you can switch yourself into mismatches and bad things. Kids switch out of convenience, not to take something away. We only switch if we can take something away, whether that's the stopping the ball, getting from the paint, or if it's, stopping the ball, getting to the post, something. We got to take something away. We can't just switch because it's easy. So there's a way that we do it. We don't point and say, hey, I'm gonna go up there. We use the phrase talk, touch, switch. We talk it, we come together, we touch, and then we switch. You know what I mean? Like, and having those emphasis of doing those things of like, okay, well then if you don't emphasize it the first time, you don't do it in practice, you do it in the game, you give up a slip, and now you're ranting and raving on the sideline. You're like, how do we give that up? Blah, blah, blah. Well, coach, you let it slide 4 and 5 times this week, trying to get through it because you want to get to, baseball balance. You know what I mean? So, you have to be a little bit, I won't say crazy, but you have to be able to, you know what I mean? Like, you got to have a little bit of that crazy in you to focus on everything. And kids aren't going to understand it at first, but they're going to understand it later when, the details are what's going to make or break the game.
And that saying, I wrote it down, right? How we do anything is how we do everything.
Yeah, yeah.
That's gonna, I think, come out in my program next season, Coach. I think that's gonna be one there, because that's great, and it's it's such a seemingly simple message, but man, is it true, right? If you, and I think that goes as coaches too, right? If you let something slip, as you talked about earlier, you just try and like push past something without really going over it, or go over it once without really emphasizing it, then that's going to get away from you, and that might create a whole bunch of problems for you by just trying to dip or relax on one thing. Like you gotta, like you said, crazy, maybe that is the word for it, but you gotta be on it.
Yeah, man, everything matters. Everything matters. And when you realize that, you know what I mean? Like I tell people all the time, when you realize everything matters, there are no, you hear coaches all the time say, man, if we just clean up some of the small things, if we just clean up, some of those things like that. Once you realize there are no small things in basketball, that everything that you don't do or you do affects winning and losing, you realize that everything matters. You know what I mean? Like everyone always talks about, and like they use it whether it's making free throws or boxing out or anything like that. They're like, oh man, if we just box out, man, it's a little thing. It's a little thing. No, it's not. There are no little things in basketball. Everything matters. Everything. So when we understand that as coaches, and we can convey that over to our players, and they actually buy in and believe that at the same time, they're going to then realize, okay, now I know that there are no small things. Everything is important. Passing. You know what I mean? We do perfection passing early on, and like to start practice. You know what I mean? We do what we call wildcat passing, and so the foot placement that you cut off. The hand you pass to. You show one, catch it with two. When you start understanding those things, you start to realize there are no little things. So it's like, yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything, because everything matters that you do on and off the floor. It's not
And
just
that's a
about shots.
and that's a great way to really maximize your practices and get your guys or girls to be dialed in when they realize that there is nothing that is insignificant or small, that everything is of great importance. I mean, I think that's a great way to make sure that your players, go all out and stay as 100% focused in practice, because they know everything matters, like you said.
No question, man. No question. And I think it's super important. Everybody always asks me like, oh, well, how do you feel like you've had success? I'm like, well, I don't feel like I've had success because I haven't won a state championship yet. Now I know I've only been a head coach for 5 years, but we've won games, but we haven't won the one game that matters. And so, until I can, get to that point, and then when I win one, I want to, I mean,
You got to prove it's not a fluke, right? Then you got to keep going.
if it happens once, people can say, oh, it's a fluke. So, so you got to do it twice. And so it's like, I want to do it again. But it's like right now I'm trying to win one first. But,
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things to where we have to become almost obsessed with it, man. And it's so hard for high school kids, because I mean they have so much going on, man. School
Sure.
and home life and sports and just the struggles with being a teenager in today's society, from social media to fitting in, and just so many things that kids have to deal with now that maybe I didn't have to deal with being
Yeah.
man, when I was younger, men their age. And so I think that so many times we are so critical of the kids, and we don't really understand what they're actually going through, because we didn't have to live through these times right now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you and I didn't have to live through COVID. I mean, we did as adults, not as a child.
No,
And,
that's completely different, right? Players losing their seasons, and all the other personal stuff, and losing out. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, for
yes.
sure. To wrap up, Coach, there's a couple questions I ask every guest. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with this first one, which is thinking back on your coaching career. What is a moment from your coaching career that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Let me think. I think, man, I think that when I came into Hayden, what I mean, I
Hmm.
think that, my first year there, I knew some of the struggles that we would face. Like I said before, we were the lone 4A in a majority 6A league. And so I knew some of the struggles we would face, but I didn't realize just how, the disparity between a 4A athlete, a 6A athlete, or the not so much the athlete, but it's just the pool of kids that you have to choose from over what I had to choose from. And so, you know, I say that because winning is hard. Winning is hard to do. Winning championships is even harder. And then consistently winning, you know what I mean? Like that's one that, you know, I'm not a fan. I'm not a KU fan. I'm not, man. You know, I live in Kansas, man. I may get some blowback from people in Lawrence, but I'm not a KU fan. But man, I respect the hell out of Bill Self, because to win that many Big 12 championships in a row, knowing that everyone is gunning for you, you know, man, like kudos to those players and those coaches. But I say that to say, when I was at Lebo, I think that we had so much success, I didn't really appreciate it like I should have, because, you know what I mean? Like it sounds bad, but it came so easy. You know what I mean? It came so
Sure,
easy.
yeah.
There, we had talent. I tell people all the time, like I got to Lebo at the right time. I had great kids. I had great parents. They bought in. They believed, and they never wavered ever. And so when I stepped in at Hayden, it was a little bit more of a challenge to not get them to believe, because they bought in fully, 110%. But it was, you know, I didn't appreciate the winning like you should have, because I don't care if you're at the junior high, high school, college, or professional, winning is hard. And so what I would tell a coach at any level is appreciate the wins, man. Appreciate the wins, man. You know, celebrate your wins. Don't be so focused on trying to worry about the next opponent. Let's just enjoy this one. And yeah, we're always going to shift gears and get our mind ready for the next game, but you know, season to season is different. And so, you know, you can't think that you're going to have success because you had success last year. So enjoy that, man. And that's what I learned to do. I learned to do it now. Obviously, I learned to do it through a very rough beginning, because our first probably 12 to 15, 10 to 12 games were rough. But you know, we kind of we caught our stride, and we kept believing, we kept working hard, and I mean, the rest is history.
I I like that a lot, though. I mean, I think it's easy to, like you mentioned, right? You win, and then you're just like, all right, what's next, right? Like, okay, we won, but yeah, we were expected to win or whatever, but like, what else do we got to do? And it's maybe that's just also a coaching thing, right? We're always on like the what's next mentality, and not really living in the moment as much as we should be. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, to wrap up, Coach, I give every guest kind of what I call a 60-second soapbox, and it's kind of your platform. And I'm not going to time you either, but it's your platform to kind of get out a final thought, kind of a final message, just kind of that closing idea. And I kind of feel bad because I think you did really well with what you just said, but I'm going to give you another opportunity, maybe for something different. Kind of like a closing thought, a closing idea, just kind of a final message that you want to leave the listeners with, and you can feel free to take it any direction that you wish. So I'm just going to kind of turn over the floor to you, Coach, and I'm just going to let you kind of take it from here.
Man, first off, man, I appreciate you for having me on, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love doing stuff like this, man. I want to keep doing it, man. I want to speak at conferences, and I want to always learn. And so, first and foremost, man, I thank you for having me on. But second, man, I want to tell, any coach listening, any parent listening, no matter your level, no matter how talented your kid, you're talented your team, I just really want to challenge coaches at any level to really pour into your students, pour into your kids, man, because the my coach that I had in high school, I tell you all the time, I went through a rough time with my dad passing my freshman year in high school, and I walked into my dad's funeral, and I looked on the row, and I had my two high school coaches there, and so they're just in support of me, and just them being there was influential and life changing. And when I could have been in a place to where I was going nowhere fast, man, my coaches, I had a couple of teachers, man, that really poured into me and really saved my life. Man, like I tell all the time, because I could have been on a different path very easily. So pour into your kids, man. We put so much thought in winning and losing. And we're just competitive people. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, our goal, especially at our level that we're at, is to help grow and mold young men and women into young adults. And if that's what we're truly talking about doing, it's so much more than just winning or losing on the basketball court. We use basketball as a tool, as a to teach life lessons. It's not the end all be all. And when we understand that, now we're going to start getting those wedding invitations, those, baby shower things, those people that come back from college and they come to your games and they're supporting you after they can't do anything actually more to help you. They go to the next level and they're still calling you saying thank you, man. So building those relationships, pouring into those kids, man, is what I challenge every coach, man, woman, junior high, A team, B team. Pour into your kids, give them all that you have, hold them accountable, but love them, hold them accountable, but love them even harder. And if we can do that, man, our goal is to try to hopefully leave this basketball thing better than what we found it. And I think that starts with really getting to know our kids and really pouring into our young men and women on a consistent basis on and off the floor.
That was great. That was really well said, and I really appreciate that message about the things that we do mean more than just basketball. The relationships that we build with our players and the way that we can have such a great impact on their lives. So appreciate you sharing that, and appreciate you coming on, Coach, and talking about program, talking about the stops you've had in your coaching journey, what you've learned through all those, and of course talking about defense, culture, building a tough defensive team, and practice, and all the things that we covered. I really appreciate it. I took a lot of notes and definitely took some things that I'm going to be bringing with me this coming season. So best of luck, Coach. I know you're at a new spot, but I know you're going to do great things over there. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep pushing yourself and pushing your players, and best of luck this coming season. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man, and best of luck to you. And look forward to continue following your progress, man. You're doing great things, man, and just giving Coach the platform, and I appreciate it. So thank you for everything.
And appreciate all of you for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We will see you guys next.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.